Lord, what a few years it's been for Diablo fans. First, a remaster of easily the best title in the franchise with Diablo 2 Resurrected. Then the following year we got Diablo 4, with all the sexy updates and battle animations a boy could dream of. Blizzard hadn't gotten the best impressions from folks in recent years, so they were sure to throw their heart and soul into this project, if major gaming companies had either of those. To be fair, it did make a decent first impression. The graphics were sexy, smooth animation, the world map was wide, diverse, and more vibrant than ever before. It made the world of Sanctuary feel truly alive and integrated for the first time in 20 plus years. And they finally gave us mounts to skedaddle past all those unruly mobs slowing your ass down. Holy shit, I love that. Progress, Blizzard. Kudos to you. I was excited to get into it. Then slowly, I started to notice something. A trend. A lot of what I saw happening in-game, it looked familiar. Felt familiar. I kept on playing, the sensation only grew. By the game's climax, it had overtaken any other thought I had on the experience. This installment and the Vessel of Hatred expansion were jam-packed with so many references and nostalgia baiting, it left me wondering then, and especially now. Does Blizzard have Alzheimer's? Before we continue, there will be spoilers for Diablo 4 and Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred. Discretion is advised. Also, for any newcomers to the channel, this content is focused on narrative structure and character development, how well they work, what can be better, and what needs to be flayed to death by my army of glowy skeletons here. I may mention gameplay mechanics now and again, but just understand it's not the focus. Anyways, let's get started. And I can think of no better place than the world itself. Not world building per se, I mean the actual setting for the game. Again, I love the new map system, that was terrific. Watching the environment change as you travel really helped each area feel alive. The different towns and settlements all had their own setup based on the terrain. This was great, creative. But the people, the state of society, humanity is a weak and scattered pimple scar on creation. Most either hide away from the danger surrounding them or succumb to another power for a false sense of security. You've a few pockets of inspiring resistance, just not enough to change anything. Sanctuary has been portrayed as a world teetering on hell's front door since the first game in 1997. One wrong move is all it takes and we're roasting our chestnuts on an open flame. The disappointing thing is, Diablo 3 set up the potential for humanity's stake in the conflict to change. Tyrael says it right at the end. Humanity and heaven united. What happened to that? I know Diablo 3 wasn't exactly the thrilling installment we all hoped for. It got way too cheesy for my taste. But the narrative itself was okay, bar a few details. It was still a new chapter in the series for humanity to truly represent the progress and change that neither angels nor demons possess. And what did we get after a decade of waiting?
I've been standing in this hallway thinking for 1,000 years. I've had time.
More of the same. Humanity is pathetic. And where are the high heavens? Their gates are slammed shut. And to date, there's no information on what's going on with that. Almost as though Blizzard didn't know what to do with this new dynamic and so they locked the high heavens away for simplicity's sake. It's a complete waste. Not to mention people have been clamoring for over a year about what happened to Tyrael. That's our boy, dead or imprisoned, we don't care which, just give us closure. It's nearly impossible for anyone to feel involved in a story where there's no progress being made, nothing changes, nothing develops. It's a static investment. Why would anybody keep returning to a world where none of their efforts mean anything? Even Dark Souls, a franchise fraught with a static cycle of light and dark, found a means of presenting change in the series through the painted worlds. It's how the series ends, for God's sakes. For perspective, imagine at the end of the first Iron Man film where Nick Fury name drops the Avengers, and then it's never brought up again. No build-up, no larger ensemble cast, fans will flip them the bird and it be well-deserved. Diablo is no different. We need the world to develop beyond, oh no, another demon is causing all manners of malicious shenanigans. Alert a random passerby, surely they'll have the skills needed to save the world, just so we can retcon it out of existence by the next game. 4 installments in, that's still the basis for every title. It's worn down and formulaic. And if you think Vessel of Hatred stepped up the bar by having said demon be imprisoned in a shiny rock for the whole DLC, yeah, no, that made it worse. Humanity's whole point in the internal conflict was to be a force for change, complete beings capable of both good and evil, delving into the myriads of emotions each extreme can bring and find true balance, something neither of the other races could ever do. Now the game's arguing that humans may be bound by the same cyclical nature, defeating much of the development we were supposedly receiving. Also, Blizzard can just replicate the same scenario game after game, decade after decade, until we come around full circle and do this all again. Yeah, I'm glad to know in another decade we can have a bloody visceral pact adventure with Bale. Boy howdy, what an original concept. Over a quarter century since the first Diablo game, and nothing in the series has changed. And that's just the setting we're talking about. When we get down to particulars, things do not improve. Perfect example, the prophecy, an ominous warning of events to come. Oh goodness, how will events play out? What do the metaphors mean? Why does all this sound familiar?
And at the end of days, The first sign shall appear in the heavens. Justice shall fall upon the world of men.
Oh yeah, Diablo 3 had the same thing. In fact, I don't think they followed through on that one. This line in particular, valor shall turn to wrath. Obviously, it's a dig at our old buddy Imperius, the embodiment of valor, except he never quite went full wrathful. Sure, he's pissy, schmucky, douchey, other such terms, but he's never outright wrathful. What happened to that? Is that not in play anymore? I don't know because the games don't talk about it. It may have to do with why heaven sealed itself off from the rest of creation, but we're 2 games into that conundrum with no further information. We went right from teasing one prophecy to abandoning it in favor of a new one. That's 2 prophecies out in the open. Somehow I doubt Blizzard is going to follow through on the old one, and based on fan reception to the DLC, I doubt this newest one is going to get proper coverage either. It's not just a repeated asset, it's a repeat of an abandoned asset. And understand, all this information is based off the games. No books, no developer interviews. The games are what we pay for, what we invest hundreds of hours in grinding for better gear pieces. The game should have the answers we're looking for. It's not unreasonable. Moving on to the characters. Let's look at Lorath, an old Horadrim who contains knowledge and wisdom pivotal to our fights against the burning hells. Basically, he's Deckard Cain but less whimsical. Now personally, I kinda like Lorath. He's a disgruntled old hermit, clearly disillusioned by the state of the world and recognizing that all his dreams and ambitions have hardly panned out as he'd hoped. Seeing a jaded mentor type get back into the fight is an inspiring character trope. The problem is, he hasn't done jack all. In 50 years, it's been 50 years since Diablo 3. The Horadrim have withered to nothingness. They were supposed to be the face of humanity's struggle in the internal conflict. Even with only Deckard Cain left to represent the original order, he had an impact. His knowledge, his wisdom, his dedication despite being virtually all on his own. This new Horadrim founded by Tyrael imprisoned 1 demon, and even that wasn't done as a joint effort. Blizzard wants his ancient order to be center focus, but without letting them do anything. This only makes our Horadrim an embarrassment that probably should have died with Deckard Cain. At least then it's an opportunity for something new to truly arise, rather than some snarky old grumps, and an albino asshole. Functionally, the Horadrim only exists in the game as an easy gateway to information we can't find anywhere else, or the occasional artifact that provides us with precisely what we need to continue the quest. How very convenient. Lorath himself doesn't offer much to the story beyond shoving us towards the next mission or being skeptical about everything. Look at the game's climax. After Doran gets shanked by a pillar, God damn, I cannot believe those words just came out of my mouth. Lorath just sits there and tells us to do whatever we think is best. This is the climax, shit's getting real, and he chooses now to have a senior moment and collapse. I can see what they were going for. He was just reconnecting with Doran after so long just to see his comrade die before his eyes. It's gut-wrenching. But this man has seen much in his time. Many heroes and do-gooders have fallen while he carried on. Him breaking down now, of all times, was forced, just to remove Lorath from the final fight so the developers could justify the finale they envisioned. And that meant making Lorath useless when it counted.
We don't get paid enough to do stuff.
In fact, Lorath is so underutilized. He wasn't even present in the Vessel of Hatred DLC. $40 for that game, and all we get is following Neyrelle around like a stray pup. More on her in a bit. She gave me FF14's Wooklama vibes more than once. That is not a good thing. Now don't get me wrong, Ralph Ineson's voice acting is superb. I really do enjoy him, so I hope we see more of his work in the future, but that cannot change how passive this character's presence feels. We barely deal with him before he pisses off, and depending on the path you take, it's a while before we see him again. It made sense Deckard Cain wasn't utilized as much. He was strictly a scholar, not a trained combatant or sorcerer. Also, he was 10,000 years old at the start of the series, give the geezer a break. You know, Lorath is old, but he's not debilitatingly old. More development in Vessel of Hatred was needed for this character, and we got nothing but some useless member berries. Other organizations like the Council and Karas provide much the same quality before being relegated to the sidelines. By the way, does anyone explain how Ormus from Diablo 2 is still around? It's been 70 years. Deckard got offed by an evil fairy twat, but this Tarzan-speaking mofo is still standing around nearly a century later. I know there are various ways of living forever in the Diablo-verse, but come on. What purpose did Ormus serve being here? Please tell me this is more than just another empty callback. I mean, all the council does is help us with Neyrelle and the Soul Stone, something that ends up proving pointless in the long run. Speaking of, can anybody explain why this broad is the center of absolutely everything? As far back as the end of Act 1, Lorath monologues her importance as essential, yet she's just a scholar alongside her mother researching the Horadrim. Something rather pointless, since we've already met Lorath by the time we find her. Neyrelle isn't bad, I want to be clear on that. I compared her relevance to Wooklama's from Final Fantasy XIV's Dawn Trail. Anybody who's seen my content on that knows how I feel about her. So no, Neyrelle isn't nearly as egregious, till the DLC at least. She's just not that great. Well, the gang keeps trying to make her that great. She learns all these spells that aid us, spells that anybody else should be able to learn. spells she learns by herself, off screen. I'm fine with the occasional prodigy happening into our midst, but let's be real. Developers need to stop throwing in somebody who can learn whatever they need to whenever it's convenient. People aren't idiots. They're gonna call bullshit on things like this. Neyrelle was just a random scholar in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now she's a super nerd and a vital asset. It's cheap. If you wanted to make her important, take the time to develop it. Maybe her mother was a Horadrim, the last member of the organization that went her own way years ago. That would be a better setup for her relevance, but I guess we're expecting all too much. It certainly begs the real question, why is Neyrelle even here? Every function she serves is something another character can fulfill. Thematically she provides a sense of innocence and youth, two factors she loses during her experiences with Mephisto. If her story arc was mostly focused on that, there probably wouldn't be an issue, but no. Everything falls back on her. She gets immersed in all these dangers and no one tries to dissuade her because she's a freaking kid, and this crap we're involved in is insane. And surprising nobody, she gets hurt. Terribly hurt, making us look reckless for not telling her to piss off while we had the option. Neyrelle is the one forced to decide what to do with the Soul Stone, and she winds up fleeing with it anyways, leading to more misery and ruin. I still don't know why she bails on us at the end of the game just to demand we make decisions together after we reunite in the DLC. Bitch, no one ever said run away, you little shit. Do not pin that on us. But at least she's something new. Not just nostalgia bait, nor a cheap copy we've seen before. Like I said, Neyrelle learns sorceries that aid in our quest, contains Mephisto within the stone, tries to keep it in check while seeking a means of ridding the world of the Demon Lord for good. Oh, wait, she's Leah. Neyrelle just mimics Leah's journey in Diablo 3. See, back then, Leah's powers were attributed to being Diablo's daughter. They're abilities nobody else could conceivably have. It makes sense why she's there, she's irreplaceable. She uses these powers to keep the Black Soul Stone stable while we run around hunting the remaining Lords of Hell. Not entirely unlike Neyrelle, except Leah was raised by Deckard Cain. So she's not just some random person thrown into the series, like what we have in Diablo 4. There's already a connection to an important figure in the franchise. And the connection gets deeper when Andrea reveals the truth of Leah's birth. And perhaps most importantly, Leah is consumed by Diablo. We lose her. She becomes a vessel that nearly lays the heavens to waste, and it's only through our strength that the day is saved in the end, ideally bringing her soul a semblance of peace. In the newest installment, Neyrelle runs off with Mephisto, nearly gets consumed by the stone before a Deus Ex Machina arrives in the form of Akarot, who helps save her from Mephisto's corruption. Briefly, very briefly, what happened to Leah was a tragedy. The only tragedy I see with Neyrelle is she feels bad for all the people consumed by the literal embodiment of hatred, which would happen regardless of her involvement. My word, how does she sleep at night? Back to that Akarot bit. Bro, where the sweet holy hell have you been all this time? Where was this intervention back in Diablo 3? Was there no one to help Leah when Diablo possesses her? What about the second game with the Dark Wanderer? Did Akarot not reach out to help Prince Aiden, who was possessed by Diablo? He was in the same region where Akarot's tomb is. Perhaps the possession was too far along. But for such a prominent force to emerge to contain a prime evil now, and not any of those other times throughout history, does make you wonder what the hell all these powers within Sanctuary have been doing all this time. Now, take Rathma, for example, a first-generation Nephilim. Where the hell's he been these thousands of years? I understand he's strict about interference, but that applies to the forces of heaven and hell as well. Within Sanctuary, you'd think he would have assisted at some point with any number of tragedies over the centuries. Instead, he's been sitting around this creepy-ass mausoleum waiting for the day his daddy shanks him, contributing nothing to the world, allowing outside forces to ruin humanity generation after generation. The parallel opposite of what the necromancers, who follow Rathma's teachings, were supposed to be about. It's honestly worse than just repeating yourself. Blizzard keeps dropping elements from the canon after wasting time building them up. Rathma was a Nephilim, as are all humans. It was a central plot in Diablo 3. Yet now, I don't think the term is dropped even once. After a decade of wondering where they would take the series with the unbridled powerhouse that were the Nephilim, they were quietly chiseled out of existence. Yet another asset nobody knew what to do with, and thus buried it in a shallow grave. Not like the developers had a choice. If that kind of power remained, then everything we face in Diablo 4 will be literal child's play. Astaroth, Lilith, Mephisto. There would be no stakes otherwise. So the Nephilim and all that potential had to go. We couldn't disrupt the status quo that would require us to get creative. And nobody likes that in video games. Am I right, folks? It goes back to what I said about the world not changing, robbing us of any investment. And every time our characters seem to get stronger and surpass a certain milestone, the next title resets that progress and we do it all again. And after 4 games, people are getting exhausted. I do have some ideas on what Blizzard could have done instead, but that's for another time. The word of today is vitriol, and I'm here to fucking flex it. Also, side complaint. My first run was as a necromancer. Despite this, my character did not get a single line about observing the corpse of his order's founder. Why even include this major figure in Sanctuary's history just to sidestep him like that? This is a big deal. Are any other Nephilim still around? Now, don't tell me next game Bolkathos, progenitor of the barbarians, is going to magically appear and wrestle Baal to a standstill. My, how glorious. If only he'd done that before their culture was steamrolled over in Diablo 2. And what about Akarot? Are there more powerful entities like him in Sanctuary? Where the hell have all of them been while everything's been going to shit since the Prime Evils took an extended vacation to our immortal plane? These sorts of interventions carry insurmountable weight that cannot be understated. You can't just throw one of them in to provide a solution to your problems all casual-like. It makes people question why nobody ever intervened before, and as of now, we have no answers, especially since the Vessel of Hatred DLC was the shortest and most mediocre installment since Blizzard tried to kickstart a mobile app.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
You cockbiting fucktards.
It's not just Forces of Good this applies to either. And Duriel's inclusion in the game is also baffling. Yeah, first of all, yeah, they're also callbacks to Diablo 2. Though I will say I think I prefer Duriel's version here. It embodies the notion of anguish far more accurately. Though in contrast, Giant Naked Woman is also good. Don't judge me.
Hey, chicka bum bum.
You know, in hindsight, seeing how we were cock-blocked from getting even a primeval fight in the DLC, it was nice to face off with a few of the lesser evils. They were decent boss fights. But I don't think the developers understood these two nor their relevance in Diablo 2. See, back then, they had taken part in throwing the Prime Evils out of hell in the first place. Now that the three of them were back at it, Andariel and Duriel saw the writing on the wall. The drunken uncles of hell were coming home, and they're winding up their backhands for a heartwarming family reunion. Both of them were covering Diablo's journey to reconnect with Mephisto and Baal. So what the hell are they doing now? Is it the same thing? Why? Lilith's ambitions are not aligned with Hell. Why would they join her? She plans on stealing Mephisto's power while he's in a weakened state. Now, sure, it's stated demons are backstabbing little shits. That they would help Lilith to screw over Mephisto is not out of the question. But aligned with Lilith, they're just replacing him with another more powerful demon. That is not in line with their nature, so their ambitions don't align, their benefits differ. Tysa, the woman who was used to summon Andariel into our world, she states that Andariel didn't care about the conflict itself so long as somebody suffers. While that is classic demon bitchiness on display, it's still shortchanging their entire nature. No demon lord would aid another in growing more powerful than them. Not without additional nuance the game never supplies. So I don't understand why either of them would align with Lilith of all people.
Hey, yeah? You ever wonder why we're here?
And about the power grab, is Lilith the only one that can steal Mephisto's power? Or can anybody take advantage while he's reviving? I'm unclear on the rules about this. Why in the internal conflict has no one ever tried this before? Why would Diablo ever need the Black Soul Stone if he could just steal another demon lord's power like this? And if it's only because Lilith is Mephisto's daughter, that's quite the liability. I'd probably keep my pants on tight if it means getting flayed in my sleep by my greedy, ungrateful children. The DLC was a kick in the balls as is. So yeah, we may as well cover that too. Vessel of Hatred was terrible. It was too short, it hardly advanced the plot besides making every action to contain Mephisto pointless. If anything, it drags us backwards. Honestly, I think the DLC personifies the whole issue with Diablo 4. It does nothing but keep the cash flow moving, precisely like the franchise as a whole. Akarot died for nothing. Even the setting isn't unique, we've been to Kurast. The entire third act from Diablo 2 takes place here. Remember the docks, everybody? And oh my, the Gidbin is still there. Hooray for callbacks. The Kurast Bazaar is still around, Ormus for some damn reason. And ooh, Travancore. Remember what a pain in the ass the corrupted council was? Yeah. Now we do a light show and throw pebbles at a mentally unstable kid playing tug-of-war with a demon lord. Also, why did she come to Travancore specifically to contain the Soul Stone? It's supposedly because she's looking for Akarot's tomb. His essence has been guiding her towards him. It's after she eats his spirit's heart. I'm pretty sure an organ that size wouldn't digest really well. Ah well. Look guys, it's where we fought Mephisto. Audible gasp, more references. Why is any of this still here? Did nobody try to reclaim the area? There are settlements everywhere but here. Yeah, Mephisto's lingering influence may well have made the place inhospitable. But even that doesn't add up, because what do we do once Neyrelle is patched up? We move into the next room, which turns out to hold some secrets to Akarot's legacy. The very next room. Why, in all his time corrupting the Zaka room, did Mephisto leave the very next room to his hatred bachelor pad intact like this? I somehow doubt he had plans to possess Akarot's body that far back. He already soured the very core of the faith his teachings founded. Not sure what the follow-up would be. Yeah, speaking of which, the DLC's ending. So in Diablo 2, he corrupts the Zaka room faith, and now he possesses the founder of said faith. So, Even this ending is just them copying another game from a slightly different angle and trying to pass that off as some kind of new development. That is truly a low blow, fellas. Can't wait for the next DLC where we see him corrupting people to a twisted version of a religion that inspires violence and misery. Oh wait, Inarius already did that with the Cathedral of Light. It's a copy within a copy. In fact, that religion was started as a competition with the Prime Evils during the Sin Wars over a millennium before these events. So what we're looking at here is a copy within a copy within a copy of itself. Absolutely inspiring. And if Mephisto doesn't bother with any corruption, which, let's be real, that's precisely what he intends to do, they have to pad out the runtime somehow, it's clear the writers have no objection to using the same story beats on infinite loop. None of this touches on how cucked we were with this DLC. We didn't fight Mephisto or any other Lord of Hell, we fight a mere sliver of Mephisto's strength, and they treat that like a milestone. We get a bland story for Diablo 4's main events, teasing a major confrontation for over a year just to give us a really ugly dog to fight. This is our final boss battle, and I could not give a damn. Arrow was a retard. Mephisto will absolutely burn his homeland to the ground and do a little dance to celebrate. Akarat died for nothing. All our efforts and the people who suffered for it was for nothing. And these same exact events will play out again, even if in the next DLC we do fight Mephisto, because there's 2 more Prime Evils, and Blizzard is no doubt determined to milk this shit. And thus, the repetition continues unabated. It's our own eternal conflict brought to life, instead of a fantasy war between heaven and hell. It's $40 DLCs and pompous press releases. Okay, I'm tired, pissed off, and need a nap. I'm gonna go do that. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later.